It's a 7-figure hack. If you want to scale your business, you want to grow it quick, you want to add 7 figures, invest in your sleep first, because the better you perform, the better the business is going to do. And you prove that by...
Absolutely, without a question, sleep is one of the best investments you can make in your future success, without a shadow of doubt. Without sleep, you can't think, you can't perform, you can't operate, you can't run your business. It's really worth taking the time to invest in your sleep.
How did you get into physiotherapy in the first place?
From the age of 14, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. So I trained to be a physio, and after that, I managed to travel the world as a physio, and I got to meet lots of interesting people as well.
What did you learn from hanging around sort of high-performing athletes like that?
When you're working with high-performance athletes, you need, absolutely, without a question, to have a clear idea of where you want to go. Right. And that's a mixture of, you need a vision, you need a dream, you need some imagination, and you need...
Let's shift to talk a bit about what's in the Good Sleep Guide. Is this becoming a generation that struggles with it, or are we all struggling with it?
With the increasing awareness and increasing distractions, there are going to be more and more problems with sleep going forwards.
And what are some of the signs that we're not getting enough sleep?
You might...
I think that causes more entrepreneurs to get into trouble because they're making decisions when they're cognitively not at their best.
Totally. So there are much bigger things that can happen. There are more serious health ramifications that will take place as a result of not sleeping that well. It can be a serious problem.
Sleep is so good as it almost should be illegal as a superpower.
CEOs, sleep is so fundamental to your cognitive performance. So I'm going to run through the 10 top tips. So my first tip number 1 is master your sleep architecture. So you need to be getting somewhere in the region of 4 to 6 sleep cycles a night. Sleep cycle is a 90-minute cycle that's made up of light, deep, and... So moving on to my number 2, it's all about having a strategic wind down. So you have to build some time into your day for a wind down routine, somewhere in the region of at least 30 to 40 minutes, which will involve...
Yeah, and obviously the snooze button is the worst invention in living memory because it wrecks your sleep.
It's a disaster. Right? Get rid of... I campaign to get rid of the snooze button today.
Lose the snooze.
Lose the snooze.
That becomes the slogan.
Lose
there you go.
The snooze. Totally, exactly. I completely agree.
So welcome along to today's podcast. Super excited for this conversation. If you are an entrepreneur who has ever felt fatigued, tired, not enough energy, you're not performing at your best, and sleep is your kryptonite, like me. It's the thing that gets in your way. This podcast is for you. If you want to increase your performance, if you want to learn how to really hack the sleep and in terms of get better performance, not only are we going to talk about that, but we are also going to talk about how do you transition from an expert business model where it's all about you as the service provider and turn that into a team and into a 7-figure business. And we're going to do that today with my amazing guest, Sammy Margo. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's all right. Great to have you here. So Sammy is the founder of SmartPhysio, which operates here in London. We'll talk about that business in a minute. You're also a sleep expert. You've written best-selling books on it. which is awesome. I mean, we've got the Good Sleep Guide book here, which we can talk about with a forward from Nigella Lawson, which is rather wonderful. Thank you very much. How cool is that? You've also consulted for football teams and helped them around the physiotherapy. You've also worked with major brands, including Dreams Beds, where you talk about the importance of sleep and work on that. I'm really blessed because you recently spoke at CEO, one of our CEO lunches that we do for entrepreneurs, which is kind of an invite-only piece we put out, and you absolutely blew the doors off in half an hour. We gave you half an hour to educate everybody, and honestly, half an hour later, I had to stop the Q&A because people were still so enthralled by your presentation. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, look, let's talk about the journey with SmartPhysio. So, how did you get into physiotherapy in the first place?
So, I'm one of these really blessed humans. From the age of 14, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be a physio. I was an athlete. I liked sports. I was fairly bright. I was good at biology, chemistry, and physics. And I knew my journey. I knew that I wanted to work in professional football. I knew I wanted to be the person that ran on the pitch. I wanted to be the sponge girl. I wanted to be involved in football. I wanted to travel the world. And I guess if you have a dream and you know what you want to do, it's so easy. It makes so much sense. So I trained to be a physio, and I ended up starting working in the NHS. But at the same time, I started working in football, and I got a job in pro football, working for Barnet Football Club. I was the first female physio to work in the FA.
Really?
And it was the most unbelievable experience, but it really was my dream job. So I used to work from 7:30 till 3:30 in the NHS, and then I'd go to work at Barnet Football Club from 4 till 10 every single day.
Wow.
In those days, we worked really, really hard. And I have to say that I absolutely loved it. I actually was part of Barnet Football Club, for those of your listeners that are football fans, when we got promoted from what was then known as the Vauxhall Conference to the 4th Division.
Okay.
And obviously now they're with Barry Fry and Stan Flashman, and those were incredible days. After that, I managed to travel the world as a physio. I worked in France because I speak French, in skiing, and then I worked in Japan looking after various athletes. I worked in the States, and I had the most incredible career. So I got to travel, I got to follow my dreams, I got to do loads of sports, and I got to meet lots of interesting people as well.
And what did you learn from hanging around sort of high-performing athletes like that? What were some of the things that you sort of picked up or observed when you were doing that?
That's a really interesting question, because I think when you're working with high-performance athletes, you really learn to understand what it takes to get to where you need to get to. Right. And that's a mixture of, you need a vision, you need a dream, you need some imagination, and you need a lot of hard work. I guess all we ever see is what's in the performance. You don't actually see what goes on behind the scenes, but what you really need is absolutely, without a question, you need to have a clear idea of where you want to go, but then you've got to back it with a whole load of love and creativity. And to quote a famous person that I know, who I've spoken to once before, he said to me, and I'll tell you who this is at the end of the quote, that your work should be an outpouring of love in creativity. Thank you, Paul. That's exactly what Paul said to me when I first met him. And it's so true. Work really should be an outpouring of love and creativity, which for me is exactly what it is.
Why do you think so many people they forget that? Because I think if you're not creating from a place of passion and purpose, if you're not creating anything, people feel it, right? They can tell if you're just pushing out content for the sake of it, or you're just, going to work to get the paycheck. People can sense it, right? Like there's a real shift when you're creating because you love what you do, or you love what you have a different energy, I think.
Yeah, I think there's a certain authenticity that comes with the love, the passion, the creativity it's just there. People can just tell it. You can't fake it.
No.
And I think that, going into a career like physiotherapy, it's not the best paid job in the world, but that doesn't matter. It was always a career that I really wanted to do, and I really loved. And through doing that, through using that as my base and my kind of purpose and meaning, I've managed to turn that into something a bit greater than just being a single physiotherapist. So what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter whether the thing that you're thinking about doing isn't going to earn you loads of money. That's never the point. If you follow your dreams and you follow your passion, everything else follows.
Right.
Because you go down various avenues, and I've done loads of TV, I've been articles.
You've been on QVC.
Oh, yes.
You've been on, which I do want to come back to and talk about, because I think that I think we're living in an age where the social selling is about to become probably the next massive trend in terms of social media. And I think I'd love to pick your brains on that. So we'll come back to that, because I do want to talk about some of the tips about
QVC, yes.
And how did you end up on TV like that? How did that come about?
Well, it's a much bigger conversation, but I'll give you the abridged version. The abridged version is that when I trained as a physio, there was no one fronting my profession, and I offered my services for free to be the spokesperson for the Chartered Society of Physiotherapy. This is many years ago. So I ended up being the only physio that was happy to go on TV, to talk, to go on radio, to speak to the newspapers. So just by offering myself for free to do something that I loved doing, I managed to get loads and loads and loads of experience in the media, which was a complete blessing because physio at that time was kind of, didn't have such a high profile. It then got a high profile, and then I ended up getting a bit more of a high profile. And just specifically in terms of QVC, so my husband, my lovely husband, who's my ex-husband now, but we're still very good friends and happily ever after, he used to import and distribute homewares, and I knew loads about sleep and sleeping positions and pillows, and we were chatting, as you do with your partner, about, I've got all these amazing ideas, I can invent some ideas, and I invented a whole range of pillows actually based on my experience, and he manufactured them because I can't manufacture them. So I had all the IP, I had all of the ideas, and QVC were really taken by them. And so I ended up going onto QVC and selling different shaped pillows for all sorts of sleeping positions, front, back, side, silk pillowcases, and they did really, really well. I'm not sure that I really enjoyed selling on QVC. I think it's very difficult when you're professional to move into selling mode. But I learned how to fluff up a pillow really well, how to squidge a pillow, and how to have very beautiful nails that sell product, and how to face the camera and say all the right things with the legals. So you're not allowed to say things like, this pillow can change your life. You can say, this pillow may help to optimize your life. So there's a subtle difference. So I learned how to do it. It was a great experience, I have to say.
So there's two lessons there for me. One is you, without really realizing it, you started building a personal brand by being the face of it, really. You were building a personal brand, whether you thought you were or not at the time, really. And you were becoming a key person of influence, really, to quote Daniel Priestley, right? You were becoming that almost before it was really talked about. So you were raising your personal, and then you shifted that attention to a product. So you went from selling a service, being the physiotherapy, to selling product, where you were the product before, and now you're selling a product.
Yeah, I guess that was how it happened. I think the funny thing for me is I've never really planned it. All I've done is thought that I love this subject. I'm really passionate about it. And through that, stuff has happened.
Right.
So I haven't sat down and thought, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this and I'm going to write a book and I'm going to be on QVC and I'm going to be on TV and I'm going to represent a whole load of global brands. I haven't thought about it. It's kind of evolved over a period of time. So
because you're a featured article writer in Vogue and stuff.
I actually write for nearly all female consumers. So I'm in the Daily Mail a lot. I'm in the Telegraph, the Observer. I have articles pretty much 2-3 times a month in, month out, talking about sleep, and largely in female consumer. But that's based on years and years and years of giving my time for free to a lot of journalists. So I built up relationships over the years as a physio, and now I speak a little bit more about sleep. And as a result of my investment of love and creativity and time, and also because I wanted to learn how to write articles. I'm a physio, I don't know how to write articles. I'm a physio, I don't know how to write a book. I'm a physio, I don't know how to sell on television. But I guess that just by putting yourself out there and taking risks and, I don't know, being open to learning new things, you can pretty much do anything from a base that's completely irrelevant to where you want to go.
But that's part of the journey, I think, of an entrepreneur, isn't it? Of going, okay, great, what's the next skill? I always say one of the greatest values for an entrepreneur is skill stacking, right? So you go, okay, great, I need to learn how to work with journalists. That's a skill. I need to learn how to write a book or an article. That's a skill. I need to learn how to present on television. That's a skill. And I need to learn how to tell a story on a podcast. They're skills. And the more you stack those skills on top of each other, the more valuable you become as a communicator and as an educator. And do you feel like, do you still get work today from things that you've published? Do you still?
Oh, absolutely. The work continues to flow in. And actually, I think because social media has changed things, I think we're continuously learning and evolving and learning how to, now I've got a go and learn how to be a podcaster. That's going to be my next mission. I'm starting here today.
Doing well so far.
Today is my first.
Is that right?
Today's my first go.
Is this your first ever podcast, really?
I have actually been interviewed by someone, not face to face. I've done it over the phone. I've had a couple on the phone, but I've never actually done a face to face podcast. So today, Paul, marks my first experience as a face to face podcast. I've done loads of radio, but this is slightly different because it's a bit more intimate. It's a bit more personal. It's a bit more deep diving into the thoughts and feelings of someone else. So it's a bit more intimate, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I've done podcasts where I've done them on Zoom and things like that. Nothing wrong with it. I just think we have a better conversation when we're sat face to face than we do on a computer.
It's a bit like therapy, isn't it? It's kind of the difference between...
It's been called that, yeah. So take us back through your journey in terms of... So you're a very successful physio in your own right. You're building a career. When did you decide that actually now you needed to start recruiting other physios, which isn't an easy thing to do?
That's a really good question because I didn't have a clue as to what I was doing. But what was happening is I'd got so busy that I'd run out of hours in the day to work.
Right.
And that's exactly what happened. So, like, if you think about it, there's probably about 12 to 14 hours in the day that you can actually work. And when I was younger, I had a lot more energy and I loved what I did. So I just did it. The physio session used to be somewhere in the region of half an hour per session. So when I'd got to 22 patients in a day, I just thought, gosh, I don't think I can do this anymore. So I had to recruit someone to do the 23rd and the 24th. And so I started out just as me, and I kept on multiplying it, and it multiplied more and multiplied more. And things, obviously, I think there's a critical mass point when you're growing a business as to when you're doing all the hard, when it really, really changes direction. So basically, I've grown my practice now. We're 25, no, I think we're now 27 physios. We've grown to 27 physios. And that was from me starting on my own. But the reality is, how did I choose to go from one physio to another? So when I ran out of units of time in the day is the answer to the question. It wasn't that strategic, right. Unfortunately. It was.
No, but it often isn't. It often isn't with the first couple of hires, because I think people just go, I'm maxed out. I'm really, really busy. I need to hire help because otherwise I'm going to burn out. So I think people get to that point, and the first 2 or 3 hires are often not strategic at all. They're just, I've got no time. I need to hire somebody. But I think there's a really interesting point here for me, because I don't know if you observed it, but I've certainly seen it with clients. When you start to build a team, you get to around 23 people, it sort of starts to shift and feel different.
Definitely.
It's not the same small team of 10 that were battling everything. It sort of becomes a bigger feeling business, or just did you feel that?
Definite shift. And also, I think that when you get to that number, particularly if you've started it up, you actually have to move from ops to strategy.
Yeah.
You have to leave that part of. I still practice as a physio. I do limit my number of hours in the week, but I think my head is more about strategy. So I've moved. That's quite a big shift for me.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that I'm getting away from the thing that I love. What I'm doing is I'm working with people that also love what they do. And to me, that's it's one of the values that we recruit with. We have like 5 values.
Okay.
When we're recruiting, we look at 5 specific values in the people that we're recruiting, which is a bit like part of who I am. And one of those values is that they're really passionate about what they do.
Okay.
And so moving from ops to strategy means moving from being passionate about what I'm doing to managing people who are passionate about what they're doing. So it's a continuum.
Yes. So what are the other 4 values then?
So the values. So we spent quite a lot of time reflecting on this, and it's one of those things that you do when you get to a certain size. You have to have values, because everything you do,
what builds culture, right?
Goes back to it. So aside from being passionate, our other values are we recruit people, or our business is about going above and beyond the call of duty. In medicine, it's really important to be responsive. So we value that. So, for example, we value, if we're interviewing someone, if they don't get back to us straight away, we're not interested, because it means they're not responsive.
Yes.
Because that manifests in their DNA.
Yeah, so true.
So above and beyond. So if they come for an interview and then they write back immediately saying, I really loved meeting you and I'd love to join your team, that's the kind of person that we want, because they're responsive, they're passionate, they've gone above and beyond, because not everyone responds like that. We're also looking for people that are quite family oriented. That might sound like a really weird value, but we treat families. We don't treat someone's mum. We treat the mum and the daughter and the brother. We treat families. So someone with good family, they don't have to come from a perfect family, but they have to be very much all about family values. And the fifth one, authenticity. So for us, it's a funny value again, I know, but I want people to be real. I want people to be who they are. I don't mind if they're quirky or odd or whatever. I don't care. I just want them to be real. Because I think nowadays, particularly in this culture, people value authenticity, even if it is quirk.
Yes.
So I don't want anyone to fake being, I'm a professional person and I'm like this. I want them to be real, whatever that means. So authenticity is really
And you
important.
measure against those during a recruitment process, or is it more of a gut?
During the recruitment process, we have a scorecard.
Okay.
But one of the scorecards is whether we subjectively and objectively feel that they've actually met the value system.
Right.
So it's really important for us because we want our staff to be of the same, to be, they're not all the same, but they need to have those sorts of values, which I think they sound a bit wishy-washy. I know, years ago, it used to be about being a perfectionist and about, didn't it? Remember, tell me what was the interview question? We used to get asked, what are your strengths and weaknesses? And my weakness was, I'm a perfectionist. That used to be the case. But now you want people that are real.
Yes, 100%. Because you can't, I think, if you're not raw and real, then when I meet you, it's different, right? I need to get the same experience. Like I always say to people, I'm a slightly exaggerated version of me on stage than if you met me in a pub or in a restaurant. I'm obviously dial it down for the environment, but you're basically getting the same version of me. It doesn't really, I'm Paul, right? Whether I'm on stage or whether I'm not, because frankly, it's too hard to try and fake that and be a different version.
It's exhausting.
It's
really, really exhausting.
Absolutely exhausting. And secondly, I don't want somebody to meet me and go, well, you're nothing like the video I saw, or you're nothing like I saw you on the podcast. And I think that, first of all, you have to get comfortable in your own skin to just be okay being who you are, which isn't easy in today's world at all.
Absolutely, particularly because of social media.
Yeah.
But I can see my 18-year-old son who's coming through. They are obsessed with being real. Like, Mum, don't put a filter on. Enough with the filter. Just be real. I'm like, I don't know if you understand the aging process, my lovely child. You do need a little bit of a filter, particularly in the morning sometimes. But it's interesting to see what's happening. I'm very in touch with what's going on with the kind of 18-year-olds that are our future workforce. And I think authenticity is a big deal for them.
How do you battle a lot of clients I work with will often complain that the next generation coming through have a large amount of entitlement in the way they operate. Like, I think when we spoke first, we had a bit of a chat about this, but you have quite an in-depth sort of training process, don't you? When you bring people onto the team, you have quite an in-depth training process.
So we do an induction which takes around about 3 months, and they're required to obviously do all their compliance, but to shadow and slowly to settle into the team.
Yeah.
So and quite often we're trying to pass it down. So with regard to recruiting the new generation, this is always a question that I could spend hours talking about. It has its challenges, but I think it's really important as an employer, particularly as a modern employer, to be very open-minded and to try to learn from the up-and-coming generation, because fortunately I've got a son of a similar age, so I kind of maybe have a little bit more insight, but I'm really open to learning. I think where I'm struggling a bit is, for me, it was normal. If I wanted to be a physio and work in professional football, I was happy to start work at 7:30 and finish at 10:30 p.m. That was normal. I think we do have a bit of a challenge because they're not prepared to put in the same hours, but they have the same desires.
Yes.
They just don't want to put the hours in.
Yes.
And that's...
that equation's quite hard to work out, isn't it? I don't want to put the time in, but I do want to be paid.
But maybe they're doing it smarter.
Maybe
I'm the fool. Maybe I did work too hard. Maybe I put in too much time. Maybe there's a smarter way. And I'm kind of holding hope that there is a smarter way to do things, and maybe the new generation will be able to share with us the smarter way
I love that. That's a great mindset to put into it. How did you also balance the growing a business, a significant size business, right? And at the same time having a family and all of that. How do you as a working mum do that? Like, because that's a hard thing to juggle.
It's a really interesting question. I would say that what's the phrase that speaks to me? It's invention is the mother of necessity? Which way around is it?
Necessity is the mother of invention.
Mother is the.
We all knew what you meant. It was fine.
With the mother, necessary, and invention. It doesn't matter which way around you put that.
It works.
So I'm really blessed because I already had a career up and rolling when I gave birth to my son. Unfortunately, my husband left me when I was pregnant, which is a good and a bad thing.
How did you do? I'm sorry. That's no. I didn't know that about you. But I mean, like, how did you compartmentalize that? Or because that's a big hit, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not really for this podcast to talk about it, but the main thing that I can say 18 years later, when I've got a great son who's doing really well, thank you very much, I'm so grateful, is that I think it's really important to focus on the positive side, which is what was amazing for me is that I was able, and a lot of people in marriages, partnerships will understand this. For me, I was able to just focus on looking after my son and not have to collaborate with someone continuously, which for some people is really hard work. A lot of my girlfriends have said to me, "You're so lucky you don't have to share every decision with someone else." So I've been really lucky because I've been able to.
It's a good.
I mean, I was the main carer for my son. I'm the main carer for my son. Actually, he's 18 now, so I'm not anymore. But
yay!
I was able. Yay, freedom!
Yeah, I'm out.
I love you so much.
My
Daniel.
son's 19. I'm out of that.
Much.
Yeah. No,
so. It's been an amazing journey because what it made me do is it made me work smarter.
Right.
It made me structure my day because I always wanted to be available for my son. So I used to get up. I still get up very, very early, do some work, did the school run, do my day's work. But I always made sure that I got back to pick him up from school. Nice. So it actually made me compress my day so that I would actually get all my work done. I think sometimes when you're under pressure of time, you actually get things done. You don't check.
Yep.
You don't go over it. Like, because I think your intuition's often right. Like, when I have more time, I spend more time checking, but I come to the same conclusion. So I think having less time was really, really great.
That's a great tip, actually. I think there's that phrase that says, if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person. But I also think that without hard deadlines, without specific kind of got to get this done by this point, without cutoffs, we just tend to keep trying to second guess ourselves, I think, all the time.
So I had a deadline every single day, and I read a really good book which was about eating a frog. I don't know if you remember.
Brian Tracy.
And every morning I wake up and I have a to-do list, but I always start with the hardest thing. Normally people on their to-do list, they clear the easy thing so they can do the hardest thing. But I have this policy based on his book, which is I always start off with completing the hardest thing, so the rest of my day is really, really easy. And also, I'm a proper morning person. My brain is clean and clear in the morning, so I can do proper hardcore, clean thinking, so I get my hardest tasks done first thing in the morning before I have to do the school run, before I have to go to work. Yep. So I've kind of, you learn to manage your day. And in fact, I got my book deal given to me just after I gave birth to my son, and I wrote that book that's sitting in front of you when I was breastfeeding. That book is Breastfeeding My Son. For those of you that buy my book, that's the breastfeeding book.
We'll put a link in the comments to it. But that's interesting. Did you actively go out and seek that deal, or did you attract it?
It wasn't on my bucket list, writing a book.
Okay.
It was not on I didn't write, I want to write a book. It just so happened that I developed an interest in sleep, which I'll come on to. And somehow I was asked to write a book. And the person who ran the house asked me to write a book and said, "Do you have any areas of interest? Because you'd be a great person to write a book." And I said, "Well, I'm really interested in sleep." And they said, "Well, write a book on sleep." I'd actually produced a leaflet on sleeping positions for the Chartered Society of Physiotherapy about how to sleep on your front, back, side. And we'd done a whole campaign on sleeping positions. And because I'd spent so many years treating people with injuries that couldn't sleep on their front, back or side. So they had neck pain, they couldn't sleep on their front, they'd injured their knee, they couldn't sleep on their side. So I knew loads about sleeping positions. I wrote a leaflet and I said to the person who ran Random House, look, I've done this leaflet, I can write a book on sleep. I know loads about the physical side of sleep because I think I mentioned this to you. When I first set up my business, I didn't have any money. So I used to... I didn't have any premises. I didn't have any money. So what do? You go and visit people in their homes. So I set up a home visiting service. So I spent a lot of time treating people in their homes, in their bedrooms, on their beds. And I learned so much from observing my surroundings and their bedrooms. And that's how I got to learn loads about sleep. So it kind of, I attracted it. It kind of happened. It wasn't
But
on
also
my bucket
you were
list.
ready for it. I think sometimes, well, you'd already published something which gives you credibility. First thing, you'd actually published the leaflet but you'd done your 10,000 hours, hadn't you? You'd done your, you already had that knowledge within you. It wasn't like somebody came and asked you to write something which you weren't an expert in.
Oh, totally. Yeah. So I must have thrown it up. I must have attracted. I didn't think I want to write a book. I think if I went out and said, I want to write a book and went knocking on publishing houses, I never would have got a book deal. But I guess it was more of it was just out there. I attracted it somehow and I ended up writing this book. But then as a consequence of that, I wrote a follow-up book called The Good Sleep Guide for Kids because that one did really, really well.
And I think that's what's powerful. It can't have been easy to write that book at the time you were writing it. You just had a baby, you're running the business.
I disagree.
Did you find it?
Okay. I find that when you're going through challenging times in life, I find that sometimes having a focus,
yep.
And I think probably because I have the ability to hyper-focus.
Have you always had that? Have you always had that ability?
I've always had an ability to hyper-focus. So having an ability to hyper-focus, particularly when I'm going through a challenging time in my head, allows me to almost be more productive, more creative.
Yeah.
That might sound a bit mad, but sometimes during my most challenging hours, I've actually produced my most unbelievable works of art. It's quite an incredible, feat. So I almost think that out of what's that thing
adversity.
about out of the swamp grows the flower or whatever. But out of adversity comes some really positive things. But I think it's up to you to decide how you want to shape that adversity. The way I often say this to people that are going through difficult times, which is when people are throwing pieces of coal at you, you take that piece of coal and you turn it into a beautiful fire that burns really bright.
Nice.
That's how I kind of manage my adversity.
Nice.
Coal into burning fire, and I get freezing cold, so it keeps me nice and warm.
Nice. Like that a lot. Okay, so let's shift to talk a bit about what's in the Good Sleep Guide, and you obviously as an expert in this published the books, and it's interesting you've written one specifically for children. Do you think children are struggling more with sleep now than ever before because of the phones and things? Is this becoming a generation that struggles with it, or are we all struggling with it?
I think we spent a third of our lives asleep, and it was that 2/3 of us were struggling to get a good night's sleep. But I think with the increasing awareness and increasing distractions, I think there are going to be more and more problems with sleep going forwards.
And what are some of the signs that we're not getting enough sleep? Like what should we be? What are some of the the symptoms or the signs that say, you're not getting enough?
Apart from the fact that you're not feeling great, you might actually not be looking great. You might be irritable, moody. There are much bigger things that can happen, ranging from memory, as well as your weight might be affected, and just overall your general health and well-being is compromised. And obviously over a longer period of time, there are more serious health ramifications that will take place as a result of not sleeping that well. It's okay for a little bit to not get too much in the way of a good night's sleep, but I think that over a long period of time, it can be a serious problem.
I think a lot, and I've done it, a lot of entrepreneurs tend to kind of go, it's almost a badge of honor to go, I slept 4 hours last night, 5 hours, I'm on the hustle train. And it's been a big journey for me personally for the last couple of years, certainly because I've been obviously tracking my sleep now with, wearables. And I think that's becoming something that's suddenly helping us go, oh, hang on, there's data behind how I'm actually feeling or what's going on with that. And I think that's a massive shift in it. So when you spoke at the CEO lunch, which was brilliant, you took us through kind of your top 10 sort of strategies around dealing with sleep and how to improve it. And I think I'm always reminded of somebody who said sleep is so good, as if you're a sports person, it almost should be illegal as a superpower, because if you're really good at getting, most top athletes are getting 8 to 10 hours, because they know it's the best recovery time. They know it increases muscle growth, all of the things that, and I think as entrepreneurs, we are sports people. We should think of ourselves as high-performing sports people. What's your nutrition like? What's your sleep like? What's your rehab like? What's your rest and recovery like?
Totally.
And I think most of us don't. We just think, I can be always on and it'll be okay. And I think if you're fatigued, the risk of making a bad decision or avoiding something on the list of your frog that you're avoiding it because you got decision fatigue, because you're just tired, you don't want to make a big decision. I think that causes more entrepreneurs to get into trouble because they're making decisions when they're cognitively not at their best.
Totally. So I think sleep, I totally agree with you. Having worked in professional sport, as I said at the lunch, the guys around, the CEOs they really should be professional sleepers. They really need to invest time, as much time as they invest in their work and growing their business. They need to invest in their sleep, because that's almost the yin of the yang. That is the superpower, as you call it, your kryptonite.
It's my kryptonite. It's the one thing, I've got control of my diet really to the point at which I'm constantly tweaking it. And I think this is one of the things as well. It's not one of these, performance isn't one of these things that's done. It changes as you get older, right? You need different levels of sleep as you start to age. If you're traveling, you got to think differently about your sleep.
Stress, you need different amounts of sleep as well. If you're going through a divorce, a breakup, you're moving, you need different amounts of sleep. If you're going through breastfeeding, you need different amounts of sleep through different stages in your life. And certainly for your listeners, who are largely going to be people that are running businesses, sleep is so fundamental to your cognitive performance, to your decision making, to how you're running a business, how you're showing up for work every day, how you're showing up for your relationships, how you're showing up for your employees. It's so important. It can make the difference between a good boss, a bad boss, a good husband, a bad husband, a good wife, a bad wife, a good partner, a bad partner.
Well, the best version of you. I think I struggle with the good, bad. I think it's just that we don't become the best version of ourselves. And I think it's not just us, though, is it? If we're employing people and you're employing nearly 30 people, if there'll be a percentage of people within your organization who are struggling, say, with sleep, and therefore it's affecting their performance at work. And I think sometimes we're so quick to judge, that person's not very good at their job at the moment, or they're struggling, without sitting back and go, maybe they're struggling with sleep, maybe they're moving, maybe they've got personal challenges, maybe that's in fact impacting their sleep. And I just think as a sort of a leader, an empathy-based leader, it's good to ask those questions of one of my teams recently going through a challenge where, their other half, ended up in a nasty accident, in hospital a lot. That's a massive amount of stress. And I know just because she worries about things, she'll be lucky if she's getting 3 or 4 hours sleep a night. And if I know that, I'm then A, got more empathy for where she's at, and B, don't want her to be putting herself in a pressure situation of having to make important decisions financially that week because you're not at your best. And my job is to support you, and knowing that you're probably not getting anywhere near enough sleep at the moment because you're stressed and worried. Actually, we need to support you with that.
I think I want to come and work for you, Paul. You sound like a really compassionate person.
Because do you know what? Because I've had some really tough stuff myself, I think, and I'm always I have this belief that people are trying to do the best they can with what they know, with where they're at right now. And sometimes people just don't know any better. Sometimes they do and they're not doing it. But most people generally want to show up and be the best version of themselves.
Totally, yeah.
And the whole kind of mantra of, which used to be true years and years ago, of, you leave your emotions at the door and all that. No, you don't. You're a human being.
Totally.
You've got emotions. There's a great psychological tool called the window of tolerance. And it depends on where that window of tolerance is. When it's wide open, we can handle stress, we can handle difficulty. When it's reduced because of lack of sleep, moving, relationship challenges. Illness is a really good one,
Yeah.
And therefore your window of tolerance is smaller. Therefore, things that normally wouldn't stress you out suddenly cause you distress. Or if you go above the line at window of tolerance at the top of it, you tend to go into fight or flight. If you go below the line, you tend to do freeze and you just don't do anything. You just don't make any decisions and you go that way. And I think, with all of this, it's just like the more you become self-aware of how your body's functioning, your body it's a massive part of your performance and your mind. And my wife's got a brain injury, and I physically watch it if she goes and does something that's new for her, like she'll do something, and you realize how much cognitive energy it takes to run that process, and suddenly she'll need 2 hours sleep in the afternoon just to try and recover. And I think there's a part of us as a society that's forgotten the circadian rhythm, or forgotten the ability of, like, look, naturally we're not supposed to be on.
We're not meant to be on
12 hours, 15, 16 hours a day. We're not supposed to live like that.
Totally. We're actually, I often use this line that's a really useful line, which is we're not on-off switches. We're more like dimmer switches.
Nice.
And one of the tips that I'll come on to will be about the bedtime routine, which is talking about how we actually are as dimmer switches. And also we need to respect that, you might be going through an episode of illness, you might have had a health scare, and remember, as a chartered physio, I'm more in the land, my day in, day out, I'm more in the land of illness as opposed to wellness. The book was primarily written for wellness, but I'm acutely aware of the impact that illness can have on your recovery, on
your business. If you get sick as an entrepreneur, I think I've spoken to entrepreneurs who, if you get ill, you're not performing at your best because you're ill, and then there's a temptation to try and just push through it, rather than realizing actually the best thing you might be able to do is go to bed and sleep for 8 hours, because actually your body needs it, right? So let's jump in, because you did this brilliant presentation when you came to the lunch, and
well, I ended up
we won't
demonstrating.
Don't tell that. No, we'll not tell that. We'll maybe tell that story at the end, right? Because it was one of those moments where everyone in the room went, "Yeah, that wasn't expecting that." So maybe we'll tell that at the end. But let's go through. Let's go through these 10 tips that I think really will help people. And I think as we go through these, I think it's just important to kind of take a moment and go, okay, I might know that, but am I doing that? Because I think one of the dangers when we talk about sleep, sometimes we go, oh yeah, I know that. Yeah, but are you actually doing it consistently? Because that's the difference, isn't it?
So I'm going to run through the 10 top tips. Before I start, you might be wondering why I do 10 top tips. And this is actually in part to do with my own personal insecurity that I'm going to share with you. The reason I do 10 top tips is because when I'm delivering a talk, I get really upset when people start falling asleep or looking at their watches. So what I say to them, I'm going to be doing 10 top tips. So at number 5, we'll be halfway through the talk. So you'll know I've only got 5 more to go. So it keeps everyone on their A game. And I tell them always, I get very upset if people fall asleep during my sleep talk.
That's not what your outcome is, right? We're not shooting for that. No. So if you're listening to this and feeling sleepy, pull over if you're driving, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to make this really exciting. So what I've done is, because there's such a range of knowledge out there, I talk to from biohackers all the way up to people that don't know anything about sleep cycles. The way I've pitched this is so that hopefully those of you that are listening will at least get a tip or two out of this as we're going on. Or it will just be a reminder of what you need to do to get a good night's sleep.
Or what you used to do and maybe forgot, and now you've come off. Because I think that happens a lot too. We can get knocked off. I think as athletes, if you think about it in those terms, you can get injured, you can get knocked off what you're doing, and suddenly it doesn't take more than 2 or 3 days, and what was a habit suddenly goes out the window, and you're off the cycle of doing stuff. So some of it for me when I heard you talk was like, I used to do that, but that's dropped, and I've stopped, and I've got to put it back on.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to run through my 10 top sleep strategies, and please feel free to interject, Paul, as I'm sure you will do. So my first tip number 1 is master your sleep architecture. So from my perspective, and having run a company for a while, if you can measure it, you can change it. So I'm a big fan of using data, any form of data. So I use wearables, and there are so many wearables out there. I've actually worked for quite a few of the companies. I'm not going to mention names here, but I think a couple of us in this room are wearing various rings and various watches, and I think they're all great. Don't get too het up as to which device you're using. Whatever works for you is fine. Some people don't like rings because they don't like things on their fingers. Some people don't like watches because they don't like things on their wrists. Whatever works for you is absolutely fine by me. So what to do is start out by trying to understand your sleep architecture, and that means using a device. You can go the kind of caveman route, which is when you wake up in the morning, you can say to yourself, and this is my opening question, I'm going to ask Paul this question. When you woke up this morning, Paul,
Yes.
How did you feel?
This morning I woke up, I felt tired, actually. I felt tired because something had happened the day before, not yesterday, the day before in the evening, that had significantly disrupted my sleep. So I have a 24-hour kind of lag when something like that happens. I'm fine the day, but the day after I feel it. Yeah. So when I first woke up, what was interesting is I first woke up this morning, I thought, I didn't sleep well. I'm fatigued. Actually, I need to be careful. And then I checked. And what's interesting about this is just to get about understanding yourself, isn't it? I checked the data.
Yeah.
And actually, it turned out I'd slept a lot deeper than I thought I had, and therefore, my recovery score was much higher than I thought it was.
It's very interesting.
So I think it was more probably that I was just coming out of a deep sleep at the time that I woke up this morning.
Quite possibly, but I think it's important to ask yourself, and for the listeners to ask themselves, when I woke up this morning, or when I wake up in the morning, how do I feel? If you wake up feeling great, then you've had enough sleep for you. You don't need to check your device, but you've had enough sleep for you. But many people wake up and check their device to determine how well they've slept. And I think the main thing that you need to focus on is your sleep cycles. So you need to be getting somewhere in the region of 4 to 6 sleep cycles a night. And before I go on, I'm just going to tell you what a sleep cycle is. A sleep cycle is a 90-minute cycle that's made up of light, deep, and REM sleep throughout the night. And in order to feel good, you need to get somewhere in the region of 4 to 6 sleep cycles per night. And that will actually, that's basically how to make you feel better. So if you are waking up after 3 hours of sleep, let's say to go to the bathroom, that's absolutely fine, as long as when you go back to sleep, you're getting another 2 sleep cycles. So it's just figuring out what works for you, because obviously as you get older, you might need to go to the bathroom, or you might have more fragmented sleep, you might have more disturbed sleep, or you might be recovering from something. So working out what your sleep architecture is the beginning, because if you can, from then, you can then start implementing various variables like room temperature, caffeine, alcohol, which we'll go on to talk about a little bit later, and see what impact that has on you specifically. So the first thing is to master your sleep architecture.
Okay, cool. So architecture in this context is more data or rhythm, or?
A bit of both. So figure out what your rhythm and routine is, because humans love, I love saying this line, humans love rhythm and routine. They like the same. They like rhythm and routine. And once you get to establish what your rhythm and routine is, you can then, and if it's not working for you, you can then make some changes, but you need to know what the data is first before you can then make changes. Yeah. And also what I wouldn't encourage is trying to make too many changes in one go, because you won't know which variable is working for you or not working for you.
But that's so true for running a business as well. I think, sometimes unless you're measuring stuff, you don't know where you're at with it. And then especially true with, say, things like marketing, suddenly you start...
I have to say marketing, social media, everything. I just have no idea. Was it that video that we did, or was it that piece of...
content?
I know, what was it?
What was it that blew up our leads this month? But I think that's the whole thing. If you're not measuring it, it's very... I always talk about 3 things. You've got to measure something, then you've got to move it up, then you've got to maintain it at that new level. Because I think quite often people go, I'll measure it and move it. And I'm like, yeah, but if you don't add maintaining, because you have to get the habit then, or you've got to develop the habit of maintaining it at that higher level, rather than just, I've measured it, I've moved it up, but and then it's fallen back down and I've measured it again. It's like, no, the maintain bit for me was always really important as well. So true for anything in business.
So
right?
interesting. Yeah, so true. And thank you for sharing that with me, Paul, because it is so true. So data is so important. So moving on to my number 2. I mentioned this just before, but it's all about having a strategic wind down. And what I did say before is that humans are not on-off switches. You can't just have a busy day and then lie down and fall asleep. It doesn't work like that. We're more like dimmer switches. So you have to build some time into your day for a wind down routine. And I'm just going to take you back to when you were babies. Your parents used to take you upstairs. They used to calm you down, maybe have a little bit of playtime, give you a nice warm bath, play some music, start to dim the lights, give you a nice warm milky drink and settle you down, and you'd go off into sleepy land after happily ever after. Now, what we've forgotten, sorry about that, Paul, but what he's giggling at me, I can't imagine why he's falling asleep. What we've forgotten is how it was when we were babies. And it's very important to remember to be a baby all over again and build into your day your own. For those of you, your listeners who've had kids, you'll understand what I'm talking about. You might do this for your kids, but you don't do it for yourself. But you need to do it for yourself. You need to build somewhere in the region of at least 30 to 40 minutes of a wind down routine, which will involve some technology cut-off time, no arguing with your partner. So we call it a non-confrontation time. You're only allowed confrontation during daylight hours on the weekend, which is why you've got to go and play golf. That's besides the point. But no technology, no confrontation, and just making sure that you might want to wear you might want to put your night mode on. You might want to have a warm bath or a warm shower, maybe a little bit of a snoozy snack like a banana, which is practically a sleeping pill in a peel.
That does work, by the way.
I'll talk about that.
But I've since you spoke about that at the lunch, I've tested that and it absolutely works.
You? So a banana is practically a sleeping pill in a peel. It's got potassium, magnesium, serotonin in it, and it's a great sleepy snack to have before you go to bed. But you can have a warm milky drink, but definitely not tea or coffee, but a warm milky drink or a chamomile tea to help you wind down. But you need to build some time into your day for a strategic wind down routine. Cool. So that's my number 2.
Right.
So moving on to number 3. This is one of my favourite ones because I'm a physio and I spent so much time in people's bedrooms. It's all about the bedroom, the bed, the bedding. So the bedroom, it needs to be cool, dark and quiet. Cool, 16 to 18 degrees centigrade, because this can optimise your sleepy hormone melatonin release if your bedroom is cool. Dark, it needs to be as dark as possible. Either use those blackout blinds that they have in France or Spain when you go on holiday. You know, those ones that...
You can buy lots of those, lots of those. Like you can even buy film now that you put on the window, actually on the window.
Yeah.
If you can't always hang blinds. So, for example, if you rent a house, you can't necessarily change those things, but you can buy blackout film that you put up that blacks out.
Yeah, so, and if you can't do that, then I would just use an eye mask. So cool, dark, quiet. So if, for example, you're at the front of the house by the beep, 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 beep traffic lights, move to the back of the house or find a room that's a little bit more quiet, but not on the back where the train track is. So cool, dark, or use earbuds.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And you can get bespoke ones. My understanding is Specsavers are doing, I'm not advertising Specsavers, but you can get bespoke ones done.
Yeah, there are lots of people who do stuff like that.
Buy the moldable ones that go in your ear. I use the wax ones. So cool, dark, quiet, but it also needs to be an uncluttered, safe haven for sleep. So if you can just have your bedroom for sleep and not work, that really is ideal. But also moving on to the bed. So as a physio, beds are really important to me. If your bed is more than 8 years old, it's time to change your bed because it would have deteriorated by at least 70 to 75%. So it might be time for you to change your mattress. If you're not changing your mattress, you might want to put a mattress topper on top of your mattress. But if you don't want to spend money on a mattress topper, just get some of your old blankets or duvets and put them on top of your mattress, and that might change the vibe of your mattress. But I think it's really worth spending money. If you do the maths on what it costs to buy a bed. It's much cheaper than your cappuccino every morning. It's really worth buying a new bed as well as pillows. I'm a big fan of replacing your pillows. If you're allergic, you might be using microfiber. Replace them every 6 to 9 months. And if you're using natural feel, be it feathers and or down, I would actually replace these every 1 to 2 or so years. But definitely focusing on optimizing your sleep environment. A thermometer is a great thing to have as well to measure your room temperature. So bedrooms, as far as I'm concerned, are really important. I've done articles on what colour should the ceiling be versus what colour should the wall be. I was explaining this to someone the other day, that basically when you're sitting in your bedroom before you go to bed at night, it should be a nice neutral, even a pale blue or a pale green colour just to relax you. But the ceiling should be slightly brighter because when you wake up in the morning, you look up at the ceiling, so it should be slightly brighter for in the morning. So your bedroom is really, that's your sleeping environment. I know it's harder for those of you that travel a lot, but you can take things with. You can take your lavender spray with, you can take your eye mask with, you can take your earbuds with, whatever you need to get you.
Take your pillow. I travel with my own pillow because can't stand it when you get to hotels and the pillows aren't good enough.
Totally, and a lot of people do that anyway, but then they leave them behind.
No, the secret to that is...
What's the secret?
The secret to this is there are 2 things. Number one, because I've done that. I've lost pillows in hotel rooms. The secret is put your pillow in a completely different pillowcase cover, because most hotel pillowcases are all white. Mine's purple, obviously.
Obviously.
Of course. I mean, given. But then you see it. And secondly, the other one is anything I leave in the room or I'm worried I'll leave in the room, I write down on a Post-it note, remember pillow, remember swimming trunks or something if I've gone to the spa. And I will stick that on a Post-it note on the door. Brilliant. Like, so as you go to leave, well, I know, so it's so obvious when you say it, but when you go then, because when normal or iPad cables or chargers, remember chargers, right?
Chargers, I always lose my charger.
Well, the answer to that is get a bright coloured cable, because then the white ones never stand out. But also just write it on this Post-it note. So and then you'll have like 3 or 4 Post-it notes on the back of the door. And when you go to leave, you go, did I pick that up? Yes. Did I pick that up? Did I pick that up? And honestly, ever since I've been doing that, never left anything in a hotel room since.
But I love the idea of taking your own pillow in your own personalised pillowcase. I love that. It's such a great idea. Right. Yeah, fantastic. So yeah, many of my patients, they take their own pillows on holiday because they've got very specific requirements for their memory foam or their feather endowment or their Siberian goose, whatever works for you. And that's a whole podcast. Pillows are a whole podcast in themselves. We haven't got time for that today, but that's a whole.
We've got to get through the rest.
Yes. So we're now moving on to number 4. So number 4 is timing your light exposure. So ensuring that when you wake up in the morning, you expose yourself to daylight. It's really important so that your body knows, your circadian rhythm knows that in 16 to 18 hours later, you are going to go to bed at night. So exposing yourself to bright light when you first wake up in the morning is really key. And conversely, in the winter, for those of you that I suffer from SAD, seasonally adjusted disorder, I often use one of those super bright lights that many different brands do. I have one right by my computer. It makes me feel so much. Do you use one?
I do, yeah. I struggled with that for years before I realised that was what the issue was. Certainly the dark nights stuff. I really struggle to feel as energetic when that's on, and then I did exactly that. I bought one for next to my desk where I work at home, and it's been a game changer. And
actually, for those of you that are watching this podcast, there aren't that many of you watching this podcast. The lights in this room are being lit by lights that are very similar to the SAD lights. So I'm feeling...
So you're feeling great.
I'm feeling fantastic. And conversely, at the other end of the day, you might want to put your phone on night mode. You might want to use amber glasses. And you can now buy these smart light bulbs. I've actually bought you one as a present, Paul. I bought you a smart light bulb. It's in my bag over there. And these are these light bulbs that you plug in, and on a remote control, you can actually dim the light, dim the lights, but change the colour of the light to more of a red light. That's why when you go to kind of sexy restaurants at night, they're normally red because it's more relaxing and more, it's a different frequency, whereas blue lights are much more sharp and they wake you up. Red lights are much more calming, and they actually allow well, the thing with light is it's really important because it actually suppresses the release of your melatonin, which is why when you get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, try not to turn the light on. Maybe use...
all the best hotels that you stay in have those low light LEDs, which are brilliant, aren't they? Let's be honest about it. When you go into the bathroom,
so you don't.
You can actually buy them. You can buy them from most DIY stores now, where they stick them to the skirting board or something. And
I think it's a great idea because if you do need to get up in the middle of the night, many of you might wake up and think, "Oh, I've woken up. I ought to go to the bathroom." Or many of you might wake up and need to go to the bathroom. You're never quite sure which one it is. But if you do need to go to the bathroom, try not to turn the light on and make sure that there's no slippers or, I don't know, your underpants on the floor that you're going to trip over, because you'll end up in A&E, which is a great
Let's
idea.
not do that.
So let's not do that. So that is number 4. So that's timing your light exposure. And it's not so fashionable here, but in America, everyone is wearing amber glasses.
I just bought some for my son because he's struggling to go to sleep and he's a big gamer. Loves playing his games and stuff, and when he plays games, he has his, because he's autistic, he has his iPad on that he watches at the same time or whatever. And obviously they're both blue light, or even though they've got night settings on them, it's still bright, and
so it's just to keep it down.
Yeah, so no, we've just bought him glasses like that. So it'll be interesting to see how that works for him.
That'd be very, very interesting. And I often say to people, instead of watching television at night, maybe listen to podcast like this one by Paul. But quite often listening to the radio or a podcast, maybe one that's not too interesting.
Audiobook that's
a soporific voice, or even Melvin Bragg's.
That dates both me and you.
I'm afraid it does.
Anyway, on to 5.
Moving on, number 5. My 5th tip is strategic caffeine management. So many of you, I'm sure, will be using caffeine to optimize your performance. I certainly do. I'm one of these people that has to stop drinking caffeine by 10 in the morning, because if I don't, it affects my sleep at night, because the half-life of caffeine, which is really how long it hangs around in your body versus the effect it has on you. Quite often the effect is over, but how long it hangs around in your body and affects you is much longer. So for me, I've got to stop drinking caffeine by 10 in the morning. But I'd strongly recommend that for those of you that are caffeine sensitive, that's not everyone, but it's most people, you need to think about stopping drinking caffeine by lunchtime. I personally wouldn't go part. Does it affect you, Paul?
Yes, it does. And for me, I've learned if I'm having it after, if it's after 1 o'clock or probably 12 o'clock, really, I'm going to pay a price later at night if I try and go to bed early. But if I do know that I'm staying up, if like today I'm in London, I've got a book launch to attend tonight, all that kind of stuff, and I'm not going to get back till late tonight. So I did have
push through.
I did have a little bit of a caffeine at about 2 today. I had a single shot macchiato at 2, and I know that's normally, if I was going to bed at my normal time, 9:30, 10, that would cause me a problem. But today I'm not going to get about till midnight. So that,
so using it,
I'm just using it
to push through,
just a little bit of help.
Yeah, but what I would say is that is one of the variables that once you've got your data set up and you know what your sleep architecture is, if you then try and adjust your caffeine times, it's actually a very useful one to start with, because then you can get a feel for whether it actually is truly affecting the quality and quantity of your sleep. The other thing on caffeine is you might want to switch to green tea or matcha, because that's got other substances.
So it just gave me, I met a client today who's from Hong Kong. They do business in Hong Kong and China. They just came back with the green tea matcha. They just bought me some to try. So I'm excited to try that.
That's really interesting. So the difference is it doesn't give you the same spikes. It's more of a gentle leveling out. So it's worth trying to see the impact that it has on you, because everyone's different.
Right.
So certainly I'd have a go at that. So, and then on the strategic caffeine management, remember that alcohol is also in that picture, in the odd nightcap is okay, but going into the multiples might prevent you from getting into the deeper stages of sleep. So therefore, that's another thing that you can play with using your sleep architecture. And many, I guess when we were having
just thinking about it, isn't it? If you've got a really important meeting the next day or something, the last thing you want to do is go out, drink the night before, because it's going to impede your performance, because it's going to impede your sleep, and therefore you're not going to be at your best. And I think this is just where what I call grown-up business owners start to have a thought process about this. When we do things like our grown-up business retreat or our scale-up summit, we always say to people, listen, look, you get to choose when you come on this, but we strongly suggest you don't stay up in the bar and drink all night because you want to get the most from the event. There's nothing wrong with having an odd glass of wine or enjoying dinner, but don't go silly, don't do mad stuff because you know there is a debt to be paid for that decision, and that cost, certainly if you look at it, you wouldn't be a high-performing athlete and drink loads every night. Because that would catch up.
If you're about to run 100 metres the next
not if
day,
you're about to play in a really important, critical game, you know. And I think sometimes, you know, I get it. It's sometimes some people use it as a coping mechanism, and I know my wife did for a long period of time. We both haven't drunk for years now, but I still think it's just test it, right? Like I'm at data. It's like, see what happens to your sleep when you do drink alcohol and when you don't, and then your performance the next day, and just start to go, is that trade worth it? And
totally.
Look, you might decide, actually, it's a big celebration, it is worth it. Okay, fine. But then don't schedule something really important in for 24 hours afterwards, and just be a little bit more aware of the impact it's going to have. Okay.
Yeah, interesting.
Cool. Where are we at the 10?
Moving on, we're now on to number 6, 60% of the way through, so we're getting there. So napping, power napping. I'm a huge fan of power napping, particularly if you're struggling. But power napping should take place at some point between 1 and 3 o'clock, not much later if it's too close to bedtime. So many of you will get home after a hard day at the office, sit down in front of the television and fall asleep, and then not be able to sleep at night. That is not my idea of a power nap. That's a death nap, because you're then not going to be able to sleep. So power napping, if you can, if your work allows you to, just have some time out between 1 and 3, from as little as 20 minutes all the way up to one sleep cycle, which is an hour and a half. Many of the people at the lunch were saying they actually do it on the weekends just for a little catch up, particularly if they're going to have a late night, say on Saturday night. They use it as a strategy to push through the evening. I'm a very morning person. I find late nights very difficult. So if I know that I've got to stay up on a Saturday night, I'll often try to have a nap on Saturday during the day, just so that I have the ability to push through, because otherwise I will struggle. But it's one of those difficult cultural things. It's very accepted in other cultures, namely Spain or Japan, but here it's not quite. We haven't quite got the pods in the office.
But 20 minutes of meditation can be a really powerful thing to do as well, right? So
Totally. So if you can, that'll be a great thing to do. Moving on to number 7, which is exercise in sleep. So exercise can increase deep sleep by 13%. And the most important thing that I would say is that if you are exercising, try and do it in the morning, in daylight. If you're doing it too close to bedtime, you might get overheated, and as a result, that might affect your body temperature, which will affect the release of your sleepy hormone, melatonin. So try wherever possible to ensure that you've got enough time to cool down after you've exercised. So exercise is great. Even 10 minutes of exercise is great. Any exercise is great, but make sure that it's not too close to bedtime, that you're too energized, too excited. I remember we were chatting to a chap who was doing HIIT just before bedtime, and he just can't settle down because he's so excited. He's so overheated, and all of the benefits of the HIIT they're lost because he's not able to sleep at night. So ideally, if you can exercise earlier on, it's obviously easier in the summer than it is in the winter. But if you can exercise and not get overheated too close to sleep, that's what you want to be doing.
Great.
The next point, which is point number 8, is nutrition. So there's a whole range of foods that will actually help you get a better night's sleep. How do you feel, Paul? Or how do your listeners feel after you've eaten turkey on Christmas Day? How do you feel?
Yeah, well, I'm always more sleep. It's funny, I'm sleepier if I mix it with carbs. If I don't have carbs, if I have turkey without, so if I have just the meat on its own, that doesn't make me sleepy. But if you mix it with carbs, for me, then you'll be asleep.
Yeah, so there's a whole range of foods that are precursors to melatonin. They've got tryptophan in them, including turkey, milk, amongst other things. And the other things that you can have to help you get a good night's sleep, as I mentioned before, banana is practically a sleeping pill in a peel. I should be an walking advertisement for bananas. It's got magnesium, potassium, serotonin. Marmite type substances are great. They can actually help you get off to sleep at night, but only 50% of people like it. Almonds are great. Lettuce, potatoes, chamomile, lavender teas, they're also great. There's a whole list that I've got in my book of substances that are great to help you get
brilliant. In the Good Sleep Guide.
Yeah.
Great. We'll link to it below.
And the other thing about hydration, so water is really important for sleep, but drinking too much can actually keep you awake in the night because you might have to go to the bathroom. So it might be that you can actually try and figure out how long before sleep you've got to drink, but drink in the morning and drink not too close to bedtime so it won't affect your waking up to go to the bathroom in the night. But that's for you to work out because everyone's different. As you get older, you need to go to the bathroom more often. So moving on to my number 9, which literally is talking about stress and mental clarity. So what I would say is that there's a whole load of techniques that you can use that will help to keep your stress and mental clarity better. So one of the things that I often suggest is setting some time aside to have a little bit of a worry time. I'd certainly have a bedside journal for your racing thoughts. So often if I've got a thought going on in my head, to get it out of my head, I write it down in my little journal just so that, I must remember to whatever, do whatever I have to do. But also there's a specific technique that's been used for many years by Jacobson. It was invented in the 1920s called progressive muscle relaxation. And that's a whole sequence of breathing exercises and contracting and relaxing your muscles throughout your body, starting from your head all the way down to your toes, or from your toes all the way up to your head.
If there's a video of how to do that on YouTube or something like that.
I've actually done
one. Have you done one?
I will send it to
Well, send us the link. We'll put it there below.
So it's
put it below this episode. Yeah, great.
I've got a very deep soporific voice on that one. Okay, because it really helps.
Let's not do that now.
Okay, sorry, Paul. So just making sure that you set time aside for your worries so that you can. And in our meeting, actually, someone had a really good tip, which was talking about how thinking about your worry is a whole big room and how you've got to squash that big worry down into a little dot to make that worry mean nothing. And my final point is literally about your travel and scheduling. So just making sure that you keep your wake and sleep time consistent. I know it sounds boring, but I personally have to catch the 9:57 sleepy train. If I don't catch the 9:57 sleepy train, then my next sleepy train doesn't come in until about 11 o'clock. So I struggle and I don't feel so great the next day. So you need to figure out what is your optimal sleep and wake time and try and stick to the same. Boring. I know. But going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time every day, even on weekends, even on holiday, is really what you want to be doing to make you feel your very, very best.
Yeah, I think that kind of rhythm, isn't it? And it's okay because I think sometimes at the weekend you go, I should sleep in at the weekend. And you have to just rewire that brain and go, actually, the best thing I can do is not to sleep in at the weekend. It's to get up and then maybe go to the gym or go for a walk or go out and, go with the kids or just get up and get going.
Get up and get going. Yeah. And if you need to catch up on your sleep, you need to go to bed earlier.
Yeah.
So instead of lying in, you can actually pay back your sleep debt or you can actually build up a bit of a credit by so if you normally go to bed at 11, try and go to bed at 9 to make up for what you might have lost. Better to get up at the same time every day and just pay it back because humans you'll actually feel better and you'll actually get the deep shortwave sleep early into the evening. So going to bed earlier as you'll catch up, not sleeping in, is often the answer. And people have got it wrong because they think they should lie in.
Right. Yeah, and obviously the snooze button is the worst invention in living memory because it wrecks your sleep
It's a disaster.
Right?
I campaign to get rid of the snooze button today.
Lose the snooze.
Lose the snooze.
That becomes the slogan.
Lose the snooze. Totally, exactly. I completely agree. Yeah.
So I just want to, before we wrap up, because you've got a pillow here, but just explain a pillow test that everyone can do to test whether they've got a pillow. Obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can watch how to do it. But if not, we're just going to explain briefly as we very quickly get towards wrap up.
So if you've got a pillow, if you're not sure whether your pillow is working for you, I'm just going to demonstrate on podcast, if that's at all possible, it might be the first, how to do the broken pillow test. So what you do is you get your pillow, get rid of all of the air.
Yep.
Bend it in half.
Yep.
And you get your trainer and you place it That was me taking my trainer off noise. You place it on top of the pillow. Now, if the pillow is broken, it won't spring off. But if the pillow is working, it will spring off, and this is what you'll hear.
Right.
Because the pillow will actually fluff back up. So if your pillow is broken, it's time for you to get a new pillow.
So I think for me, the key takeaways with this are, as entrepreneurs, invest in your sleep environment, invest in understanding how your body really works by tracking the data, right? And view investing in whether it's linen or bed, pillows. That investment is going to pay you back in terms of performance, right? It's like
Totally.
10 times.
Totally.
Because actually it's the superpower. It's the kryptonite if you don't get enough sleep that will cause you issues. It's the superpower if you do. That actually probably becomes one of your best competitive advantages if you're fresh on it and really kind of thinking clearly, which, you know, in the fast-paced world we move, is a really key skill set. So I think for me, entrepreneurs have got to look at sleep as it's one of the best investments you can make, right, in your future success.
Sleep is one of the best investments you can make in your future success, without a shadow of doubt. Without sleep, you can't think, you can't perform, you can't operate, you can't run your business. So I'd say it's really worth taking the time to invest in your sleep.
So I think for me, it's a 7-figure hack. It's like, in terms of if you want to scale your business to 7 figures, you want to grow it quick, you want to add 7 figures, invest in your sleep first, because the better you perform as an owner, as an operator, as a leader, as a CEO, the better the business is going to do. And you prove that by, you know, building your business with over 30, you know, nearly 30 people, and, you know, in a very difficult market in London. And I think it's a credit to you that you've not only done that, but you're also out there helping people to frankly feel better about life. You know, as Nigella says, right, that this book literally changed her life, and she highly recommends everyone reads it. So Sammy Margo, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
For having me, Paul.
It's been an absolute privilege and a pleasure to spend time with you. The Good Sleep Guide is available from all good bookstores, and obviously is it Audible as well? Can we listen to you? Is it on Audible?
I don't think it's... Oh, no, it might be on Audible. I don't know. I need to check, actually, Paul. Sorry about that.
If it is, we'll put links to those below, but obviously absolutely a perfect book to read before bedtime.
Yes, it will make you go to sleep.
Yeah, indeed. Brilliant. Excellent. Well, listen, key thing, remember, with all this podcast is, right, make sure there are 3 key things that you're going to do as a result of this, because you get paid on what you get done. We'll see you on the next show. Bye for now.
Bye.
That concludes this episode of the Grown Up Business Podcast. I hope that got you fired up and ready to grow. The key thing, though, is to remember you get paid on what you get done. So write down the top 3 actions from the show and make sure that you implement those in the next 72 hours. Hey, and while you're at it, make sure you click the links and the resources below this episode to claim free growth resources to help you build the business you desire and deserve. I'll see you on the next episode.